We're going live. Hang on. All right, now we're live. Good.
Wonderful. Great. Good evening, everybody. We call to order the April 6th, 2023 meeting, a special meeting, I should say, of the Grosse Pointe Park City Council. Welcome to those of you who are here in person and also to those who may be watching online. We will start the meeting with a roll call, which gives me the honor of welcoming Megan Bachman, our new city clerk, her first meeting. Great to get to have you on the team, Megan. We ask you to please call the roll.
Okay, Councilmember Caulfield,
Here.
Brenner,
Present.
Gallagher, Wiener,
Present.
Rowland, McMillan,
Here.
and Mayor Hodges.
Here, thank
We
you.
have a quorum.
Yes, thank you, Clerk Bachman, for confirming that we have that quorum and we can proceed with our business today, which is some important business. Before that, however, we will do our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we now move into the public comment portion of our meeting, which again is our opportunity to be in dialogue with our community. We're glad to those of you who are here and would ask if any of you would like to speak. You have 3 minutes to do so. We just ask that you approach the podium, share your name and your street, and then Mr. Rothy will be in charge of the timer. Anybody who would like to speak tonight? For those of you that don't know, there are some little Wieners in the room. Julius and Marion, you guys don't want to speak tonight? Okay. There's going to be another public comment if you want to gear up for it, all right? All right, thank you. With that, we will close the public comment portion of the meeting and move into our new business item, which is bid award and donation acceptance for extreme emergency relief valve. With that, I will turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Warren Rothy. I suppose we should note that unfortunately fortunately, our City Manager, Nick Seisland, can't be here because he is now a family of four with the welcoming of little Connor Walt. I believe it was Friday, so he's almost a week old. Unfortunately, he's not here to be part of this moment, but we are grateful to have your leadership today, Warren, and welcome you to take us from here.
Sure. Thank you. It's been fun running things this week. My reign of terror is about to conclude with this meeting. But again, it's good to have everybody here today. Our business item is the bid award for the EERV project, as well as the potential receipt of a pledge contribution in the amount of $900,000 from the Cotton family. 4 bids were received. The lowest bid is, Patrick, how do you say this name?
LD Augustinians.
Yes. And it's the low bid in the amount of $2,772,108.40. We've got a lot of people here. We have our chairman of our infrastructure committee, Councilman Wiener, as well as our city engineer, Patrick Rose, is here. With further ado, I'll turn it over to them to proceed.
Sure. Should we begin with a motion, separate this, a motion to accept the donation, then we can.
Yes, I believe the sense is rather than having having these two actions combined into one motion, that we would split them into two so that we can ensure we have the dollars available to us before we actually accept a project. So with that, the recommended motion would be to accept the $900,000 contribution from the Cotton family for the EERV and to authorize the administration to execute the required documents to accomplish such. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Wiener. Is there a
Second.
second? Moved by McMillan. With that, we will move into discussion. I will turn it back over to you, Councilmember
Thank you.
Wiener.
So I'll kind of handle the discussion for both items on this. First and foremost, not to sound like a broken record, we have been discussing the ERV for months now, but I think it'd be important to just do a brief recap of the history and how we got to where we are. So Grosse Pointe Park is a separated sewer system. This was undertaken by previous city manager Dale Kraniak back in the 1990s. And what that entails is that we have 2 loops of water in the city. We have our stormwater, which again is rainwater runoff, surface water that flows through the pipes down to Patterson Pumping, where it is discharged into the waterway. Then we have our sanitary system, which is water from the homes, from sinks, bathrooms, that sort of thing. And that loops on and is transferred over to the DRI, the Detroit River Interceptor, where it goes downstream to Great Lakes Water, where they handle it. Now, former city manager Kraniak was handling this conversion to a separated system, but he identified that there was inherently an issue in that before when we had a combined system, we had our pumping discharge. Now with our storm system, we have a discharge, but with sanitary, we are beholden to downstream. So if there was ever an issue where water could not travel downstream, if there was an issue with the discharge system, potentially you could have pressure building up and you could have backing up. So to his credit, he came up with the concept of the EERV. It was basically a fail-safe system that potentially we could bridge the sanitary and the storm systems so that if we needed to relieve pressure off of the sanitary system, we could bridge it over to the storm system. Now, I did some initial studies on it, some work on it, but that's where the concept stalled out. However, in June 2021, we had the massive rain event that we're all familiar with. It was just a catastrophic storm, 1,000-year rain event. Something that no one had ever anticipated, and obviously it wreaked havoc on communities up and down Michigan. But in particular, we saw tens of millions of damage to residents of Grosse Pointe Park. So the concept of the EERV was then reopened or re-explored by our city, by the engineering team, and we basically went back to the drawing board. As I mentioned, the rain events that we saw, the gravity of that storm basically threw out the initial designs because what we had to do is scale something up that would function under the worst possible circumstances. Because again, if we're going to undertake some kind of engineering project like this, we need to ensure that it's capable of handling the worst possible systems. And we want to put a lot of redundancy and controls in because again, we want it to be able to function for the residents. Now, what we've come up with, and Patrick Rose is here and he'll speak a little bit more to the specifics, but what we're basically looking is there's a tap onto the sanitary barrel in Essex, and then we run a pipe down to the Patterson pumping station. We tap directly into the wet well. There's safeties in that. There's a backflow preventer. There is a sluice gate, which has been controlled, has set standard operating procedures when it'll be activated, and then there's manholes for us to service and be able to oversee it. Now, again, Patrick will kind of speak to more of the specifics of that. And I want to reiterate too, this is an insurance policy. We have been extremely focused and diligent in trying to improve our overall system so that this never needs to be used. We have been drying out the system. We've been trying to optimize the system. We have long-term planning, and we're going to continue doing so. And again, that was one of the linchpins of what we were discussing with the state of Michigan, that we will do everything we can to ensure that we never need to use the system. However, given the gravity of the issue that we faced, and again, the cost to residents, between financial and the burden and the fear of having potentially another event, we are pursuing this fail-safe. Now, one thing we haven't really talked about, and I'd like to take a moment to address now, is part of the case that we made to Eagle and to the state of Michigan. You hear a lot of people say that, okay, well, we're just discharging sanitary into our waterways. Well, the argument that we made is there is major environmental benefit to having a system because it's not as simple as one-to-one. I want to just acknowledge basically the circumstance where we were faced in June of 2021, where we didn't have an EERV. Obviously, there was backing up of sanitary water, but also with the magnitude of the storm, you had tremendous amounts of rainwater, storm water pouring all over the city. Lots of residents had water pouring in their windows, and I'm one of them. We had, all this other storm water coming into our homes. And the problem is that when you take sanitary water and blend it with storm water, you are left with sanitary water. So by not having the ability to discharge and reduce the pressure, we're severely increasing the amount of potential sanitary water that we're using. Not to mention, basements have safety and redundancy, but if you have tremendous amounts of water, 3-4 feet of water, now that water is also picking up other debris and becoming potentially more contaminated. Now, in terms of the environmental impact, all of us remember what it looked like in the city, like a hurricane had gone through. We had tremendous amounts of garbage, trash, basements torn up. There's a huge environmental impact to all of that garbage. Not to mention, all of that had to be hauled off. We are talking hundreds of dump trucks of garbage being hauled off, and all of the fuel to transport it and then to put it in landfills. Then you have to remake everything that was lost. There's huge environmental, energy, material cost in doing so. The other thing that I want to acknowledge is that if you walked around the city during the storm events and immediately after, as many of us did, you saw that residents didn't just sit there with water in their basements. Many residents took pumps, some pumps, and were pumping that sanitary water into the streets. So now we have sanitary water coating our streets, intermingling with storm water, and in effect, it enters now the storm system and goes to our pumping station. And we are in effect now still discharging sanitary water. And it's important for people to realize too, while we are a separated system, many Many municipalities are not. So up and down the waterways, there are other cities that, and there's sanitary being discharged already as well. Not to mention, when you have a storm event and such massive volumes of water, it's generally many circumstances, they can't even treat it anymore. In fact, much to our benefit, Candace Miller or Macomb County actually opened up and discharged sanitary water, taking off pressure from our system. So these are things that I want to acknowledge. But as that water is discharging out of our system, and there's sanitary water mixed in, and we don't know how much, we don't know when, we can't track it. Now, the concept of the ERV. I want to reiterate again, we are doing everything we can to ensure that we don't have to use it. However, this system that we have developed, there are very firm guidelines, standard operating procedures as to when we can utilize it. It is dictated by the magnitude of the storm, it's dictated by the circumstances, but also the system itself has flow controls. So we will know exactly when it's being opened. We know exactly what is going to be going into the wet well. We're also not discharging straight sanitary, unlike what may be happening up and down the waterway. We're actually going to be blending it in with the storm water that's already in our wet well. We can actually track that and monitor it, and we know those numbers. So now, when working with the state of Michigan, we are able to tell them when, where, what exactly is going on. So for their environmental and other environmental agencies, we can tell them exactly what's going on and they can track it. So again, it's a much more beneficial system. And again, it's the context that I want everyone to know. Now, the other reason that we're meeting today, numbers, financials. We have been discussing this for some time. Obviously, this is a very big project. I almost forgot, I wanted to acknowledge Nick as well. Sorry that Nick isn't here, but he's not here for a very good reason. But Nick has been working diligently on this for the better part of a year and a half as well. But the finances. We have been discussing this project for some time, and OHM has done a very good job of mapping things out and pricing. Now, unfortunately, there are a lot of variables right now. We are dealing with inflation of materials, labor, getting in equipment. And unfortunately, this project, the scope of the work is tremendously unique. The concept of getting this EERV permit is something that's totally unique to us. This is not the direction that's really been gone with Eagle, but we stated a strong case for it. However, the scope of the work was in a lot of variables and some things that we couldn't anticipate. And so with the bids that came before you, we unfortunately came in higher than expected. Now, one thing I want to acknowledge is that in Grosse Pointe Park, we have been blessed with a wonderful philanthropic community. As you all recall, we received a donation from the Grosse Pointe Park Foundation, which was for the sluice gate and backflow preventer. Those were huge critical items that were the biggest bottlenecks with this entire design. It took a tremendous amount of lead time out of the overall project and allows us to move ahead much better. But above and beyond the lead time, as well as the financial support, that, as well as the water sewer millage that we passed, did an extraordinary amount to show the state of Michigan and Eagle how serious and proactive we as a community are taking these projects. So that, no doubt in my mind, that helped greatly with the acceptance and the approval of the permit. So now we are faced with a project where, again, unfortunately, there are some budgetary overruns. However, again, we are so extraordinarily fortunate to have a community that is engaged, as we do, and the philanthropic community from the Cotton family, Sean, John, and Sherry, have stepped in and have generously offered to put $900,000 into this project so we can proceed. I also want to acknowledge how integral they were, because they also helped us with the original presentations to the Grosse Pointe Park Foundation to help facilitate that. So they've been acutely aware of what we're looking at. And it's important to note that sewers and infrastructure aren't really the sexiest projects out there. So I want to say it's extraordinary that people are willing to support that, but they've made very clear that a community where people are sweating every time it rains, when people don't feel safe in their homes because potentially there could be a catastrophe, that is maybe the best thing that you can give people, peace of mind. And that's the linchpin of what this project represents. So again, I want to state one more time that I'm just so in awe of the community in general. And it's not just about financial support, it's about just the overall support of the residents of Grosse Pointe Park. I've been living here now for almost 8 years, and I'm always just blown away by what people are willing to do. And again, because of that, we are fortunate to be sitting here today to move forward with this project that we've all identified as a critical step towards the overall well-being of the residents in the city of Grosse Pointe Park. So I'll kick it back to you, Mayor Hodges.
Yes, Mr. Rothy, is there anything more on your front, or should we go ahead and invite questions from our colleagues?
I think questions among council are appropriate. We do have a motion on the table for the donation. So, before we get too much into the specifics, I think it would be appropriate to probably act on that motion at this
Are there
time.
any questions though relative to the motion that's on the table, reminding you that it is the donation, the funding piece of it, not the actual EERV constructions or acceptance of bids. So any questions relative to that motion? Okay, to remind everybody what you're voting on, the motion is to accept the $900,000 contribution from the Cotton family for the EERV and to authorize administration to execute documents required to accomplish as such. The motion was made by Wiener and seconded by McMillan. Clerk, could you please?
I'm sorry to interrupt. One
Yes.
quick one. In the accepting of this donation, is there language specifying that it is to be used only for the EERV?
This is going to be going into the water sewer fund. It is going directly to the.
Okay, just to make sure that it's
So that's
crystal clear, it is.
Legal is going to be drafting that. That's something they can put in there, but that is the intention. But it's going to the water sewer fund to
Just-
various projects.
Yeah, just so we're being as, clear and transparent and certain to our residents and such.
Thank you, Councilmember Brenner. Important question. With that, I think we'll go back to having our clerk please call the roll.
Okay, we will start with Councilmember Caulfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Brenner,
Yes.
Councilmember Wiener,
Yes.
and Councilmember McMillan,
Yes.
and Mayor Hodges.
Yes. Motion carries.
Motion carries.
Excellent. Motion carries. The contribution has been accepted, which brings us to the next action. Mr. Rofi, did you want to kick us off on that
Sure.
portion of the discussion as
And, I'll
well?
give Patrick time to get up here. I'm sure you'll have questions from him. Again, we did receive 4 bids from this project. It was a competitive bid process. Bids were posted for about a month, shortly after the council authorized this. To be put out to bid at its February meeting. Again, we had 4 bids. The low bid is the amount of $2,772,108.40. And, the recommendation is to award the contracts to that contractor, which is D'Agostini and Sons. And Patrick Rose is here to answer any questions we may have about the bid or the bidding process or the construction process.
Questions?
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the bid of D'Agostini.
I'll second.
Moved by Wiener, seconded by Caulfield to award the contract for construction of the EERV to the lowest cost bidder, La D'Agostini Sons, in the amount of $2,772,000 and $2,772,108.40, and to authorize the administration to execute all docs to accomplish such. Is there any discussion, or Mr. Droz, did you have anything to add?
I'll add just a few points.
Sure.
Councilmember Wiener did a great job of kind of explaining the process and how we got to here. This work is unique in many ways. There are elements of it that are more straightforward. So the good news is from our discussions with the contractor, the elements that were laid out within the plans were consistent and they understood what was being asked of the documents. So they felt pretty comfortable about proceeding with the work. Generally speaking, the plan is that they will look to mobilize sometime in later July for the work and then work diligently at that point consistently just to get the work completed. We, as part of our typical process, we contacted references for several of the contractors, just to confirm that the work that they've done recently has been up to standard and it's been done the appropriate amount of time. And favorable references were received for the contractors on that. I also currently working with them on another project that is going well. They've met the schedule on that as well. So with that, we feel comfortable recommending that the council does move forward with this recommendation.
Questions?
I just had a few, but you answered one. I was gonna just ask for, obviously, I have references. They're very more than capable of doing the work, I'd assume, especially in your review, but glad to hear you answered that, so thank you. Questions, I know we approved earlier, maybe does this bid include, because we've already pre-purchased the sluice gate and.
This reflects that, yes.
So it does reflect that in there because it is on a line item, so I want to make sure that was clear. Anything on these landscape allowances or anything on this list that could possibly be done in-house too to lower this?
We've already been discussing with our own team on that, and we feel that the numbers that we've come in with are pretty considered high.
Okay.
So hopefully there'll be some safety in that. To be honest, the last couple of days have been, we're trying to investigate every possible savings that we could. And we are going to be contacting our arborist and the internal teams to see where we can save. So.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to ask is, have we asked this contractor about bonding this for surety? Make sure that the work is done completely and
So the contract does include
the surety.
payment bond, surety bond, and
Standard contract
I know
terms.
it's standard, but I didn't see it, so I just wanted to make sure it's in here.
that would be
It's
a,
not a bid sheet.
yeah, no, that is, so the mobilization item typically covers all that.
Mobilization. Oh, there, okay.
And then they have to submit the bonds with their bid documents.
Yep, so we have those already on file.
And you did state possible start date around the July timeframe?
That's basically what they committed to.
Okay.
Well, we wanted to get them scheduled.
Right, no, I understand. I would just ask if we can for the administration to make sure that we're notifying residents.
Yes.
Because it's gonna disrupt, obviously, one of our parks.
Yeah, this will probably be the most disruptive infrastructure project we will be doing. We are going to be doing a comprehensive communication strategy with, daily, weekly updates, as well as plenty of notice in the event that like the driveway or the entrance to the park needs to be closed or something. Again, we're trying, one of the good things about being later in July, we'll have a lot of the peak park season behind us. But it is a reality, where this thing has to be built.
To that end as well, because again, we tried to flesh out every possible question. We did contact them to try to figure out what kind of disruption there would be in the park. The park will not be, or will be functional. There will likely be 2, possibly 3 days where the driveway is going to be obstructed, where residents wouldn't be able to park in the parking lot. But that's going to be happening during the week, won't be happening the weekend. Again, we're going to try to anticipate that. As far as the timeline goes, and we're moving with as much haste as possible. We want to get this project functional as quickly as possible. It's one of the reasons why. And again, I appreciate everybody for coming to a special session. But again, saving half a week, I think makes a big difference. But as it stands right now, the commitment is that they're going to begin mid to end of July and then start to finish. They're projecting about 8 weeks. So anything we can do to expedite it, but like I want to stress, like for example, the sluice gate is 40-week lead time.
Right.
So we've been doing everything we can to keep this moving along, but the biggest restraint was obviously having the permit. We really could not proceed with any of this until we had permit in hand. So.
And I don't want to, this question is more of just to make sure that for those watching and listening, that I know we've discussed this, but even like cost overrun, we discussed this in infrastructure committee, but like cost overruns and delays, if we address this with this, is there anything protection wise?
There are what we call liquidated damages. So there's a firm completion date that if they push up against that, I think it's $1,500 a day, they get a fee assessed, and basically it's a deduct off the contract. We don't want to get to that point.
No.
But it is there, and it's often a motivator. I've had contractors tell me that your LDs are smaller than this other project, so I'm just gonna do that. And ours are, these are consistent with others of this size. So obviously the emphasis is to get this job.
Oh, I know. And I know you've been on it. I appreciate it. I just wanted everybody to know that
Yep.
everything's been looked at. Thank you.
Excellent, Mayor Pro Tem.
Wraps me up.
Very good questions.
And we'll try to keep as transparent as possible, communicate things. And I didn't say thank you either to Councilman Member Brenner and Mayor Pro Tem Caulfield on the infrastructure committee. You guys have been a huge help in all this as well. Said this has been kind of a mad dash here, but we've got a great team. I'm really appreciative of everything you guys have been doing.
Other questions? Anytime I look at a spreadsheet like this, it's always amazing how different the line items can be between contractor and bid, and it does make you think like you can do some value engineering, right, when there's stuff. So thank you for being so conscientious about that. And even though it's small potatoes, just because it was noted in your analysis, Patrick, that potential for a bid alternative in the amount of $68,000 for sod, did we elect to undertake that, or are we going the more?
We are going right now to see.
Okay.
Now that does include watering, and the goal is still the same. Vigorous growth that matches everything around it.
Yeah, right.
So,
Well, and this is an area to save, and so I think it's a good place to do that. So that's good to know. And then just as I think Mayor Pro Tem was attempting to do to educate the public, so it's clear on the funding or the sources of funding to our public as well that will be coming out of the millage dollars. So our community certainly deserves a note of gratitude too for trusting us with those dollars and giving us the capacity to move this forward, as well as from the water sewer fund and potentially even Act 51 and road millage dollars. And then the gift, of course, that we've accepted tonight. So we'll talk in more detail about this and during our budget
Sure,
sessions.
the good thing
Correct.
is it'll be really easy to incorporate what the cost is gonna be in the budget, because now we know what the cost is and what the bid was approved. So again, we have unspent millage collections from the December levy of 2022. We have, again, millage money that we can draw from on the 2023 levy. We also have existing, cash balances in the water and sewer fund that we have been saving for large projects. And again, I don't know if it will need to, but some of this, because we are going to be doing work in the road work, those are actually eligible for Act 51 or road millage dollars. So we have plenty of funding sources in addition to the over $1 million of outside support for this project. So we are in a good place, and we'll get this incorporated in the budget, and it should be a good budget workshop.
Well, and making sure everybody feels part of this. I think the other thing our community can be doing is disconnecting their downspouts, right? So that season is coming again, and I think we owe that to our waterfront residents, as well as our environment in general, to make certain everybody's undertaking that action. I believe the city's getting more aggressive in ensuring that happens, Mr. Rothy. So this is another reminder, please disconnect your downspouts, community. Any other questions before we call the question? McAtammy. Well, by the way, welcome to Morgan McAtammy, representing the Kelly firm tonight. You've just really been doing a Herculean lift the last week while Mr. Kelly's gone. We appreciate all of your guidance and direction as well. All right, with that, I believe we're ready to call the roll.
Yes, we are. Okay, we'll start with Councilmember Brenner,
Yes.
Wiener,
An emphatic yes.
McMillan,
Yes.
Caulfield,
Yes.
and Mayor Hodges.
Yes.
And motion carries unanimously.
Yes, which means we have awarded the contract for construction of the EERV to the lowest cost bidder, D'Agostini and Sons, in the amount of $2,772,108.40. And you are now authorized as administration to execute those documents. Mr. Wiener, your leadership's been tremendous, and we are so grateful for your leadership in this regard. I mean, there's really not enough hyperbole to shower on you at the moment. Your astuteness and certainly your tenaciousness, getting this across the finish line as quickly as you did. It's really an honor to serve with you, and I would call you nothing short of brilliant. So thank you for that. And I think our Cotton family has certainly put the special meeting tonight by being that exceptional partner. It's truly extraordinary, I think, what's been accomplished. And they're certainly part of that. It's testimony to what public-private partnerships can do and how you move a community forward. And then too, I think we really need to make certain we thank Tom Jenny and his team as well in our DPW building. Patrick, you've sat through so many late night meetings and early morning meetings. And I think having a credible source like yourself really helps us make these difficult decisions too, knowing we have your expertise and your calm and your confidence at the table. So thank you for being that. I do again want to thank our waterfront. And I think it's testimony to the fact that you all have done a great job on the design, because we wouldn't have one of our waterfront residents actually contributing to this if she felt that this was going to be a compromise to her health and safety. So thank you to all of you on our waterfront for being comfortable with this. And I think the only ask I would have for our admin from here, and this is out of respect for our donors, the more we can stretch these dollars in leveraging them, that they can ever be used as a match for a grant source or some other way of bringing resources to the table. I think that gives the respect our donors deserve, that we're really honoring those dollars and making sure they have as much impact as they possibly can. And then you darn well better get planning a valve breaking day. So when we, go out and ground break on that, that'll be an exciting day. Is there anybody else who'd like to say anything at this point? Or?
I think Councilman Wiener said it very well. The one thing I want to add is I would wish Nick was here, but
Yes.
To be here for part of the celebration. But I think a lot of people just thought this was something that would never happen. And it certainly wouldn't happen as quick as it has. I think that the team has done a great job. And when I called Nick to congratulate him on his baby, he said, It's not about me, it's about the team. And that's what we're here to celebrate. But this is a great day. It's a great day for the city.
You are so right, Councilmember McMillan. In fact, I texted Nick on the way in here and said, we're walking into this meeting and it's not without you, because you've been such an important part of this. And what did he come back to me with was about the team. So
Yeah.
he's a team player and I'm very grateful for this entire team. So thank you for putting a good punctuation point on that. Anybody else? All right, well, with that, oh my goodness. Is it really only
World's record.
5:30? A 30-minute meeting and we accomplished all that? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
By Caulfield, anybody else to second it?
Second.
Seconded by Wiener, any discussion? Clerk, can you please call the
We can
roll?
just do a all in favor.
Okay, all in
Oh, yeah.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Great, meeting adjourned at 5:31 PM.
Perfect.
Great job.
Steal a signature.